And I said about 1% vitality change in the ocean translates into about a quarter of the total greenhouse CO2 problem, because it's the ocean that recycles most of the CO2, perhaps all of it. Thanks to rocket science, that is to say by putting up satellites that observe the entire Earth's surface. Now if we look at that net production number for the entire ocean, we have very good data for about the past 30 years. Through 2006, the last year for which we have a lot of data that's been carefully analyzed and reviewed, it looks like about 16% total decline in the ocean's productivity. So the way this thing works is, just to state it simply, the biggest net carbon sink we have working in our favor, and almost the only net carbon sink remaining on the planet, is the ocean. And its ability to act as a carbon sink in terms of actually recycling CO2 into free oxygen has been declining, and that decline started with the Industrial Revolution and the pollution of the ocean, and most of it took place since the middle of the 20th century. So by polluting the ocean, we have undermined, at this point, about 1/6 of the total carbon sinking capacity that the planet Earth has.
Richard just isn't whistling in the dark about this. He knows what he's talking about. Richard, you have a grade 4 collection systems operator certification.
I'm originally a field test ops engineer when I graduated from college in mechanical engineering, and in 2003 I started working for the Cayucos Sanitary District, and what we're talking about here is our not only our beaches and our sewage not being treated properly and getting their sewage treated properly in a treatment plant, but also the our aquifers. Our aquifers are polluted with exfiltrating sewage throughout the communities.
Story hotel that is going to be 225 feet long. It's going to be a total of 55,000 square feet.
It's timeshares, and it's restaurant and convenience store and so forth, and basically the impact in the neighborhood will be so great that we just don't want it. It's huge. Most of everything in the area is either 1 or 2 story, and they're Western style or Victorian style. He wants to do this gigantic 3-story, like 30 plus feet high, with no view corridors.
It has a long way to go before it gets to the Coastal Commission. He's in the process of changing some design features on the project.
The manager, Dave Phillips, worked. He was used to work for Cayucos, but then he's the manager of collections for Morro Bay, and I worked closely with him while I was working at Cayucos, and we test our own water, and it always comes out great. I wonder why. Kind of like a carny game. Okay, this is a backer truck. It's an emergency vehicle that is used. It's a class. You have to have a Class B license, and basically, during a sewage blockage, then to prevent a spill, you use the backer truck and you jet the line and open up the blockage. And it's used for emergency. It's also used for line cleaning. But they used to be on call for us in Cayucos, and they've prevented a lot of spills, those guys.
We're putting all sorts of minerals in it, which are feeding the phytoplankton, in some cases in a good way, and in some cases in a bad way. And precisely what minerals we put in, where we put them in, and in what relative proportions determines whether we're having a net good effect or a net bad effect on the health and productivity of the ocean, and consequently on its capacity to recycle carbon dioxide for us.
Just a good thing that private citizens such as you and Marla Joe took it upon yourselves to act as a check and balance on all the processes of our government. I mean, just imagine the magnitude of this disaster we would be facing at some unknown future if Richard and Marla Joe hadn't exposed it at this time. And to underscore this, apparently this footage covers only a little over 300 feet of line. There are miles and miles of collection lines in Morro Bay and Cayucos.
We're on a project that's called 1840 Main Street. And this was used to be a gas station that they found that the tanks were leaking and contaminating the aquifer just west of us. So this is an attempt to close out the MTBE pollution that had occurred from the leaky fuel tank.
This is about changing the community, exposing everything that needs to be exposed so that this kind of stuff doesn't just get pulled over everybody's head before you can do anything about it, or before it's too late.
We've gotten, Larry is the webmaster for our website, and I'm our communications person and secretary of the group. So we're both very involved. We both put hours in every day just about on this project. Each of his hotel rooms is going to be bigger than most of the homes in Cayugas.
Our reports have shown that the exfiltrated sewage, not only the MTBE, but the exfiltrated sewage has entered this aquifer. And so far, we haven't got positive feedback. In fact, one of the staff members at the regional board had just called me and said that he's not putting a stop work order on it, and they're going to continue to close out the wells.
Invented the word dude.
Yeah,
and skateboards.
Exactly, dude. The Lords of Flatbush there.
We're all good.
Yeah.
We're talking lifeguard station 8.
Right on, dude. Oh man, that's going way back.
There are places in the San Joaquin Valley where they're building, if you're ready for this, mini storages on wetlands. It's just unacceptable. So that's what we're about. Thanks for asking. I work with small organic and health food store retailers, and we're working to minimize the food miles. We're going to hook the small farmer and the small retailer together to overcome some of the big box, whole foods, whole paycheck type mentality. By minimizing food miles, we are actually developing food security. It's a national security issue if you really look at it that way, that we're less oil dependent. In the sustainable paradigm.
What we're seeing out there is the foam, basically. I mean, there's all these fancy terms for it, but basically it's a foam that's caused an interaction when you have chlorinated raw sewage being treated. It creates these, the biologists can get into it, but basically it creates a foamy kind of stuff. And what you have is a lot of that right in front of the breakwater and right there at the bay. And when there's a tide, it kind of comes around, it swirls, the fluid dynamics allow it to kind of swirl around, get into the